let's focus on some positives, because there were some positives. There were a few positive moments in a week that didn't ultimately deliver. Pacific, tell me a little bit about some of those positives.
Some of those positives, well, why don't I just cut right to it and say there were some matches where you couldn't decide one match of the week. So in my case, I had three.
That's right. Folks, normally this is the part where I would say, Pacific, if they only had time to watch one match, what match should they watch? But we talked about it last night. We talked about it before the show. Folks, we can't decide one match for you to watch. So
Mm-mm.
instead, for the first time in Over the Barricade, we're actually going to have a third match. Normally we have one match from Pacific, one match from myself, or if we agree, which has happened multiple times now, then we'll have one match. But this week, we're going to tell you like this. If you only had time to watch one match, you can't go wrong for this week. You couldn't go wrong with any one of these three matches. And those matches are Matt Sydal versus Dante Martin 3, Serena Deeb versus Hikaru Shida 2, and Bryan Danielson versus Eddie Kingston. Tell me why any one of these three matches would be a great pick for the only match somebody watched this week.
Well, looking at the Sheeta match and Serena Deeb's match, it picked right back up where they left off. Sheeta comes out with the broken award, and they just got right back in that ring and decided, okay, this is part two of our match. Let's go. And that's what they did.
Yeah, it was wonderful. I honestly, those two matches that they've had so far, I wish every women's wrestling match could be just like those. Like, just every single one. Sheeta comes out and she holds the pieces of the award up. She is livid. And she just, like you said, they pick right back up. They got to work, and it was physical. It was a great match. This is what women's wrestling needs to be on a consistent basis. I'm gonna keep moving forward, and address the Bryan Danielson versus Eddie Kingston match. So this was a good match in its own right, but for different reasons. It didn't have the excitement of Sydal versus Martin, and it didn't have the technical prowess of Serena Deeb versus Hikaru Shida. But what it did have was a brutal physical battle that told a story of Bryan Danielson getting beat up by this down and dirty, mean brawler in Eddie Kingston, and ultimately using his technical ability. And I know I just said it didn't have the technical prowess, because ultimately the offense of Kingston prevented Danielson from being able to implement that for most of the match. But ultimately, Danielson was able to get the submission in and get the pass out victory. And I felt like it told a good story.
Well, not only that, did you see Danielson's chest?
Looked like a
Ooh, oh,
man. If I'd have seen that in a grocery store, I'd have thought it was a steak, because it was red, man. That thing,
yeah.
whew, that looks rough. And I've noticed that they've been doing that with him a lot lately, because that match, the Suzuki match, and the Omega match all like had him looking, like I said, like a rare steak was just plopped down on
Hmm.
his pec. So I don't know if that's like if his chest is just the chop equivalent of the Ric Flair bleeding or what, but man, yeah, his chest was looking rough after that one.
Unless he's telling the guys he's in the ring with, hit me as hard as you can.
Well, I know that he did mention in a recent interview, he said he's going to be wrestling less often coming soon. Right now, you're seeing them use him every week. Every week, he's getting a standout match. And honestly, I think every week since he's been back that he's wrestled, one of his match has been one of our picks of the week, I think. I could be
Hmm.
wrong about that, but I think every week Bryan Danielson has been in our pick of the week. I'm going to have to go back and listen to it again, but I think he has been every week, and I'd certainly say he's wrestler of the month by
Yeah.
all means. But yeah, he's been in there consistently. But he says he wants to tone it back a little bit, because every time he goes in there, he wants to be able to put on, a 4.5, 5-star match. He does not want to hold it back, so that he can be ready to go next week. He wants to be able to go all out, reel nothing back, and just put everything out there. So for that reason, he's actually going to be stepping back just a little bit. Not being a part-timer, just not wrestling on every show like he's currently doing. And I'm here for it.
Yeah, I'm there for it too. You got to save him up for the big pay-per-views. You can still have him out there, part of the storyline, cutting promos and maybe doing a run-in here and there, but you want to save him for the pay-per-views. You utilize him, however you see fit.
Mm-hmm.
But in my opinion, right now, he's best suited for wrestling at the pay-per-view, not on shows like Dynamite and Rampage every week.
Yeah, I agree. And you can even have him wrestle a couple matches here and there, but having him go every week is I think it's a little bit, it's going to, in the long run, it's going to be overkill. Right now, we're still in the honeymoon phase, but ultimately, it is going to be overkill, and he's going to, wrestle everybody. He's going to, the more matches you have, the more exposure you have. The more exposure you have, the more places where he might need to take a loss could come in. And right now, you don't want him taking a loss. He's too strong. He's looked too good. And, I think reel back a little bit. Let him cut some promos that you're in dire need of. Good promos. So let him go out there, cut some good promos. Give him, like I said, give him a rivalry. Give him a true feud. So that way, instead of having to wrestle every week, he can come out and do a promo. He can come out and do a segment. You can do other things with him. You can still have Bryan Danielson on every show and wrestle a couple of them, but save those big 5-star matches for your pay-per-view where it's going to get you the money. Or, if you have a big, like a couple Fridays ago, they had that big showdown with WWE where they were going head-to-head for 30 minutes. That's where you need to be using Bryan Danielson. Look,
exactly.
All respect to CM Punk. The guy's not an in-ring draw like he used to be.
No, because he's been out of the ring for 7 years.
But Bryan Danielson is just as much of a draw in the ring as he's always been. That's the guy you want to save. If you have it's supply and demand. If you lower the supply of Bryan Danielson matches, you increase the demand. So that when something like that does come up and it's WWE trying to muscle in on your time slot, you can say, okay, release the hounds. Send Bryan Danielson out there, put on a 5-star match, and everybody's going to know it's coming.
Smithers, release the hounds.
That was eerily perfect, actually. That was really good. Okay, and enough Bryan Danielson. I never could have enough Bryan Danielson, but for now, we want to address our third pick of the week, and that is actually your pick last week for future booking for AEW stars, Dante Martin getting an awesome win over Matt Sydal. Sydal, I don't know. Sydal is how I usually pronounce it. Evan Bourne, if you want to get, retro with it. But yeah, I thought this was a fun, high-flying match. It showcased some of that over-the-top ability that some of AEW's talent has. And it's like we've said multiple times, AEW is really great because it's diverse. You've got high-flying ability, you've got technical wrestling, you've got power wrestling, physicality. It's got it all. And this, if nothing else, this week was a showcase of that, I think, because you had funny matches, you had gimmick matches like Britt Baker versus Abaddon, which
she freaks me out, dude.
I was watching, my wife was sitting next to me when I was watching, and they were doing the backstage interview, and Abaddon, Mark Henry asked her a question, she just goes, bleh. And my wife looked, she said, "Oh my God, is that thing gonna come out and wrestle somebody?" and I was like, yeah, she's about to wrestle Dr. Britt Baker. And here's the thing I will say. My wife was so intrigued by just the strange freakiness that she actually put her phone down, to watch this match a little bit. She was like, I want to see that.
But
So
you know what that tells me?
what's that?
Abaddon is doing her job right. She's got a gimmick, and because it freaks people out, it makes you stare and
Exactly.
watch.
It's like when you first look at it, you're like, ooh, but then you're like, wait a minute, hold on a second. I can't, what? You just want to keep looking more and more and more and
Mm-hmm.
see. And she plays her part perfectly.
Yeah.
She does a great job at it. And Britt Baker did a really good job doing the other side of it as well. You know, she was scared, terrified, afraid to go in the ring with her, and even with the finish with the lockjaw, she was afraid to put the lockjaw on. And so it was a good match, but not pick of the week worthy.
No.
But still, it was a gimmick match. It was the trick or treat match. It was hardcore wrestling. And it was pretty good aside from that damn Triple H table.
I'm not putting anyone over. You can try once or twice, but I'm not going to put anyone over.
Yeah, no, it definitely did not put anybody over, and nobody was certainly able to put anybody else through that table. That was the nastiest, strongest table I've ever seen. I mean, that thing was holding up. Like that table, I think, is an image of the American working society right now. Like we're holding through. We're just holding on. We're getting Abaddon thrown on us and all these things, and we're just holding strong. Like that's I aspire to be as strong as that table one day, but not yet. I'm still working on it.
And I'm watching that match, and I'm looking at Britt Baker. I'm thinking, oh, I hope her back is all right. I hope Abaddon's back is all right. Because that is one good way to hurt your back.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was a nasty bump, and then of course she had a tack bump too, which was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But and my wife, I had just shown her a video of Chris Jericho doing an interview about the time he took a tack bump with Dean Ambrose, now known as John Moxley, and so she had just seen that video, and I had no idea that they were going to do this bump, and she sees it and she goes, oh, "Are they going to do a tack bump?" And I've never been so happy to be married to this woman in my life than when she just said, "Are they going to do a tack bump?" Like the fact that she said it like that, I was like, she's listening.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was pretty nice. It was a nice little moment right there. And
Well, it also gives credit to Dr. DMD for wanting to go through with that bump. It tells you about her character saying, "No, I'm out there to put on a show. I will go through that bump. I will do whatever I need to do to put on a show for our viewing audience at home, for our audience in the arena. I
yep,
want to show off my craft."
main event. It's the time to shine,
Mhm.
and she did it as always. But back to the pick of the week, one match that shone even more, shone, I don't know, was Dante Martin versus Matt Sydal 3,
Mhm.
because you had, I was, from a storyline perspective, I felt positive that Martin was going to win, but then there were moments where I thought maybe Sydal might have won. And yeah, I thought that they both did a great job. The selling in this match was great. Martin did an excellent job of putting over the knee injury that he was getting, and it was just really good. And then the ultimate finish where he lands on his feet, that was pretty nice, well executed. And ultimately, what I noticed in this match, where in recent memory, AEW with matches like these has had issues of timing, people waiting for their spots, and things just looking sloppy. I didn't see any of that here.
No, and I think that you have to give the wrestlers credit for knowing where each spot was coming and being prepared for it
Hmm.
instead of trying to wait for the other guy to get into position so they could pull off, a high spot or some other spot that they had planned in the match.
Yeah, and I think the part of that is the fact that this is their third time meeting in a singles
Hmm.
match. They've gotten some chemistry going. It's clear that they've worked together. They've practiced, and I think they even talked about chemistry in last week I think, with Andrade and Pac, but or it might have been this week with this match. Either way, yeah, it's clear. You know, these two have chemistry. They're able to make that match work and execute it flawlessly. But yep, there you have it, folks. In summary, if you only had time to watch one match this week, we would recommend either Dante Martin versus Matt Sydal 3, Hikaru Shida versus Serena Deeb 2, or Bryan Danielson versus Eddie Kingston. You have a first, a second, and a third. That's 4. I don't know why I held up 4 fingers. But anyway, the point remains, any one of those matches would be a solid match to watch this week.